Greetings everyone, myself Kushal Pandey, Executive Editor of Inflame Medical Magazine, a student-led magazine. Greetings ma'am. Today we are interviewing a COVID conqueror who can give us an insight in the life of COVID warriors through her stories, through her narration. Mrs. Vandana Mahajan. Welcome you ma'am. She is presently associated with an NGO called Cope with Cancer and work as a palliative care counselor and a cancer coach for 7 years. She has also been working with Tata Memorial Hospital. She is also a trained mental therapist and associated with the campaign Caregiver Sathi. She is a cancer conqueror and now a COVID conqueror. Hello, ma'am.
Thank you, Kushal, for having me here. It's my privilege to be on this platform and also especially during such difficult times. The country is going through such difficult times. So yes, together we can raise awareness about a lot of issues. So thanks once again for having me.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to let you know, the audience, that we have approached ma'am through her tweets on the Twitter few days back. Her stories which she received from the healthcare workers, the frontline workers, which inspired us. And we were forced to capture this interview with her. So ma'am, let's begin this session with you.
Sure.
So ma'am, my first question for you is, what is palliative care counselor and how they are helpful for COVID patients?
Right. So palliative care is still a very nascent concept in India. Palliative care is generally associated with end of life. So if we tell a patient that you are on palliative treatment, it's automatically assumed that that patient is going to die soon. But palliative care is actually providing better quality of life to terminally ill or chronic patients. So that in totality describes palliative care. So what is palliative care counseling, you asked? When a patient is declared on palliative care, the patient goes through a lot of emotional trauma. So the physical aspect of a palliative patient is taken care of by a physician, a palliative physician, or the treating doctor. But the mental aspect sometimes is overlooked. So that is where mental health professionals like me step in. And that is what palliative counseling is. Because when a patient is on palliative care, they know time may be limited. Nobody can predict how long they will live. So they need a different kind of approach. Then their emotional state is very fragile. And that is where I step in. And that is what is palliative counseling.
So, ma'am, how they are helpful for COVID patients in this situation, in this pandemic, where we can see that there are dreadful incidences which occurs in hospitals, in families, everywhere?
Very good question, Kushal. So I am going to narrate an example from the COVID ward where I was admitted. So thereafter, I'll explain why it is important. So where I was admitted, Kushal, there was about a 70-year-old male patient who had been on oxygen support for 12 days. He had no family support around him. So when I got admitted, I smiled at him. All he wanted to do was talk. He wanted that emotional support. So we got talking, and unfortunately, I wasn't much of a help because I myself was coughing and wheezing a lot. But that's where palliative care for COVID patient becomes very important. So this patient, by God's grace, managed to conquer the disease and leave the hospital. But there are a lot of patients who do not survive. So for these patients, palliative care becomes very important. It is important for them to be made to feel loved. It is important to handhold them, to speak to them. There are a lot of patients who know that they don't have time or they're going to move on to another realm. So in such cases, palliative care becomes very, very important. So counselors, palliative physicians can help the journey of a patient become easy. So I would say in COVID times, and even WHO has said that palliative care for COVID patient should be a part of the treatment protocol. And also another reason is a patient, a COVID patient is actually deemed as untouchable. You know, the patient is disconnected from the family, has no human contact. So the emotional trauma, along with the physical distress that the patient goes through, is huge. And in situations like this, palliative intervention can really ease the discomfort of the patient.
Thank you, ma'am. My next question are in few parts, which are when you were diagnosed with COVID and how you dealt with it, and how your family faced that challenge.
The name COVID is enough to scare the living daylights of anyone. So, the moment you start sneezing or you start coughing, you start thinking it's COVID. So the same thing happened with me. I came down with viral-like symptoms, and everybody presumed because I have a compromised immunity, so everybody said it is viral because I've been taking all precautions, following all protocols. But when my asthma exacerbated, that's when the consultant asked for a RT-PCR. As luck would have it, it came positive. The entire family went into a state of shock. Entire family. My daughter started crying. My husband was scared, obviously. And we actually did not know what to do. I'm grateful to my consultant who guided us through within the next few days and who advised admission. So yes, my family went through a lot of trauma. We didn't tell it to my mother because she's very old. And she wouldn't have been able to take, the trauma of knowing that her daughter is admitted. My brother, my sister were all hyperventilating. They don't live in Mumbai, and my husband would get so many calls. They wanted periodic updates. So COVID does strike the patient, but it affects the entire family.
So, ma'am, my next question is, being a COVID positive, when you have acquired COVID infection, what steps have you taken at your level, and what steps that you have witnessed that the administration, the government has taken for your safety and health?
Right. So, being an aware person, when I had started having these symptoms, though I believed that I was not COVID positive, but I still started living in a separate room, started wearing a mask, maintained social distance from my family members, and did not venture out. Because how I got COVID was a mere coincidence. I had gone for a health checkup. There was a medical emergency, and I had to go to a hospital. And I removed my mask for an examination. So it was just for those 30 seconds. And in those 30 seconds, you know how contagious it is. I picked it up. So at home, we followed before the RT-PCR was confirmed. But once the RT-PCR came in positive, I actually want to commend the Mumbai BMC. I got calls from the BMC, the healthcare worker, multiple calls for sure. And they were very courteous. They were very kind. They, supported me. They told me not to worry. And I got a call from a BMC doctor also expressing his concerns. He asked me if I had comorbidities, and then I told him yes. He again, told me that I could get admitted in a BMC-run hospital. So I would say the administration, for me personally, handled it very well. They didn't scare me unnecessarily, but also they told me the urgency of admission.
It's good to hear that administration are also working very much hard for us and for our safety right now. Ma'am, my next question.
And also,
Yes, ma'am.
I also want to add here that after I was admitted, they called up my husband, they checked with him. Is she all right? Has she been admitted? They came to my place, the BMC officials came to my home. They spoke to my husband about the well-being of the rest of our family members. So yes, we did get a lot of support from BMC.
Okay. Ma'am, my next question, which is the core of this session. In this pandemic, we have heard stories of families, their devastation, their sufferings, their loss of their loved ones. But we don't know stories, or we haven't heard much of the stories of healthcare workers or frontline workers who are constantly 24/7 working, sweating in those PPE kits in the COVID facilities for us. So, in your experience, how they manage their feelings in those PPE suits and how their families face this challenge. Ma'am, I request you to share details you have gathered from our warriors while your treatment.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking this question, Kushal. I see a lot of brickbats being hurled towards healthcare workers, and they are being held responsible for a lot of things. I recently saw a video where a CMO was pulled up by a politician because a patient came in with 33% saturation, and anybody would know that the patient wouldn't survive. So that made me, actually, that realization came in that I must raise awareness about the difficulties a healthcare professional goes through when they are in a COVID ward. So people need to understand this. A doctor outside a COVID ward is doing a different set of duty, and a healthcare professional inside a COVID ward is actually a different realm altogether. So the world has decided to call them superhumans, and I am so grateful that yes, we have the superhuman healthcare workers taking care of us. But I also want to remind everyone who's listening to this that they are humans first. And just as you Kushal, like I am, and my family hurts, they hurt too. They go through emotional stress, just like all the non-superhumans go through. So, so I am going to talk about a few interactions that I had. Since I'm a mental health professional, I just automatically was pulled towards each one of the healthcare workers in the COVID ward, and I made conversations with them. Uh, and I that's when I realized that the mental health of the healthcare professionals has taken such a hard blow. We presume that they are those gods who are meant to save human lives. But somewhere we've forgotten that they are humans who are trained, who have gained that knowledge to help a human in a medical distress. So, as I narrate the stories to the viewers and the listeners, I'm going to use the verbatim and the language in which I heard those stories. So I'll begin from story one. I was, just to tell everybody, that I was diagnosed with COVID pneumonia, and my saturation had hovered around 95, 94, 95, and I needed admission. I'm a, I'm a, I'm a very, I have uncontrolled severe asthma, and my asthma exacerbated. So the first 2 days in the ward were actually, I was no good to anyone there. I kept wheezing. But thereafter, I started interacting with, in fact, all of them. So the first, I'll start with the housekeeping staff. Mumbai mein, the housekeeping, the ayas and the counterparts, the male counterparts, are known as Mossis and Mamas. So I'll talk about my interaction with the Mossi. So, when you're admitted in a COVID ward, first thing is you need to have a lot of warm fluids तो एक मौसी मेरे पास आए और उन्होंने मेरे को एक ग्लास पानी का दिया। मैंने उनसे पूछा कैसे हो मौसी, थैंक यू आप जो करते हो, वी आर आई मीन हम बहुत ग्रेटफुल हैं। तो शी केप्ट लुकिंग एट मी फॉर सम टाइम एंड देन शी सेड मेरे को 1 साल हो गया कोविड वार्ड में काम करते हुए, आज तक किसी ने मेरे को थैंक यू नहीं बोला। एंड दिस इज अ ह्यूमन, यू नो, दिस इज अ वुमन who wears a, I get goose flesh when I talk of this. वो भांडुप से आती है और उसकी एक फैमिली है। वो कोविड वार्ड में जब आती है, शी इज यू नो इन हर PPE, and for all the viewers I want to emphasize what a PPE is. We believe these, you know, these are just space suits like clothes that a healthcare warrior wears in the COVID ward. PPE is not only the upper cover that they have. They wear glasses, they wear face masks, they wear face shields, they have gloves on, and they have foot covers on. So आप सोचो कितना पैक्ड है एक हेल्थ केयर वर्कर। सो ये मौसी जी के बारे में मैं आपको बता रही थी। तो मैंने उनको थैंक यू बोला। तो यू नो ह्यूमन इमोशंस जब तक आप आईज नहीं देखोगे, फेस नहीं देखोगे, पता नहीं चलता इतना। बट आई हेल्ड, मेरे को उनकी आवाज में आई हेल्ड, यू नो, एक्चुअली हर्ड द क्विवर इन हर वॉइस। देन आई टोल्ड हर आप मेरी इधर चेयर पे बैठ जाइए, बताइए अपनी फैमिली के बारे में। उन्होंने पूरा मेरे को बताया उनकी फैमिली में कौन कौन है, कैसे घर जाने में डर लगता है, बच्चे हैं, बुजुर्ग इन लॉज हैं। और दैट्स व्हेन आई रियलाइज्ड कि कहीं you know, in trying to project them as warriors and superhumans, we've forgotten that they are just like you and I. So एक ये है मौसी के बारे में। दूसरा मैं नर्सेस के बारे में आप सबसे शेयर करना चाहती हूँ। See, it is the nurses on duty who are, you know, responsible for everything that happens to a patient, like for administering medicines or putting in a IV line, putting in a central line. A phlebotomist comes to draw blood or a nurse draws blood. तो उनका काम is, you know, बहुत ज्यादा है। तो मैं नर्सेस से बात जब करने लगी तो यंग नर्सेस, और मैंने उनसे पूछा तो वो खुद आके मेरे से पहले बोले, क्योंकि सिंस आई एम फ्रॉम दी हेल्थ केयर यू नो प्रोफेशन, तो उनको लगा कि मेरे साथ एक कंफर्टेबल you know, they can be comfortable with me. तो फिर एक से मैंने पूछा कि आपके घर में कौन कौन है। You know, I heard her voice break down. She said, मेरा 6 साल का बच्चा है और जब पैंडेमिक शुरू हुआ था, they were not allowed to go home. तो उन्होंने बोला कि वो कितने महीने हॉस्टल में रुकी, बच्चे से नहीं मिली। बच्चा उनका पेरेंट्स के साथ, उनके जो सिस्टर हैं उनके पेरेंट्स के साथ रहता था, और अब उनके बच्चे के एग्जाम्स चल रहे थे। तो वो पूरा अपना ड्यूटी करके हॉस्पिटल में एक बार नहाना, कपड़े बदलना, घर जाके फिर नहाना कि बच्चे को पढ़ा सके। इन नर्स ने मेरे को ये भी बताया कि उनके जो हस्बैंड है वो गल्फ में पिछले 4 साल से रहते हैं और अभी उन्होंने वापस आना था, पर अनफॉर्चुनेटली बिकॉज दैट टाइम वो ड्यूटी पे थी तो वो नहीं जा सकती थी। तो मेरे को ये लगा कि ये भी हमारे जैसे हैं ना, इनकी भी फैमिलीज हैं हमारे जैसे, इनके भी बच्चे हैं। और इन सब के साथ एक बात मैंने और रियलाइज की कि हम सबको वर्क फ्रॉम होम अपॉर्चुनिटी है। हम जो भी काम करते हैं उनको तो वर्क फ्रॉम होम अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं है। एक कोविड वार्ड में रहना, मेरे साथ जब मेरे को कोविड हुआ था तो मेरे पास कोई हिंदी में बोलते फटकता भी नहीं। वो 24/7 एक कोविड वार्ड में रहते हैं जहाँ पे व्हेन आई हैड अ कॉफिंग बाउट मैं अपना मास्क उतार देती थी। तो सोचिए उस एटमॉस्फेयर में, उस एनवायरनमेंट में कितना वायरल लोड रहता है। तो ये लोग ऐसे एनवायरनमेंट में काम करते हैं। While I was admitted, I saw 2 deaths, COVID-related deaths. एक रात 10 साढ़े 10 बजे होंगे जब मैंने, because I was, you know, I was in the ICU ward. तो मैंने नर्स को, एक मेल नर्स थी जो CPR परफॉर्म कर रहे थे, मैंने बहुत कमोशन सुनी वार्ड में और and then I realized आधे घंटे बाद nurses and जो भी ICU staff था, they couldn't save the patient passed away. अगले दिन जब वो nurse जो male nurse थे मेरे पास आए और he was checking my vitals, तो मैंने I made a conversation with him because again why I was able to do so because I'm a trained mental health professional and I just picked up those signals कि उनको जरूरत है अपना दुख शेयर करने की. So मैंने उनसे पूछा कल रात को मैंने सुना कि आप CPR कर रहे थे, must have been difficult. He started narrating कि मैम बहुत कोशिश की पेशेंट को रिवाइव करने की. Then he also told me कि उस पेशेंट के 2 बच्चे हैं, एक यंग वाइफ है और उनको कितना दुख होता है जब पेशेंट दे लूज अ पेशेंट. I mean imagine COVID healthcare warriors and professionals को कितनी तकलीफ होती होगी to see people dying practically every day. मतलब शायद पूरी जिंदगी में अगर किसी नर्स ने 20 साल काम किया है जितनी डेथ्स उन्होंने 20 साल में नहीं देखी होंगी पैंडेमिक के दौरान देखी. So I made a conversation with him and then he said thank you because he wanted to express his anguish. उनको जो तकलीफ हुई थी, the mental trauma, losing a human life is never easy for doctors or the nurses or for anyone, even for me. I mean, my work is with palliative cancer patients. Loss of life is always very painful. और भूला नहीं जाता उसको. So I'm glad that I was there and I could kind of share his emotional trauma. Then another thing that I want to bring to the notice through this platform is female healthcare workers. बहुत उनके लिए मुश्किल है, especially when they are menstruating. Sanitary pads change करने की जगह नहीं होती. जब एक healthcare worker एक COVID ward में आता है, they cannot come in without wearing a PPE. जब वो PPE डाल लेते हैं, उसके बाद 6-7 घंटे वो पानी नहीं पीते, खाना नहीं खाते. एक मेरे को नर्स ने बताया कि before the duty begins, उसके 2 घंटे से पहले वो खाना बंद कर देते हैं, पानी पीना भी छोड़ देते हैं, क्योंकि अगर पानी पिएंगे और वो कोविड वार्ड में ड्यूटी पे आ गए, अगर वॉशरूम जाना हो तो वो नहीं जा सकते. So आप सोचिए इतना सारा कुछ पहनने के बाद, I mean, humanly, we wear a mask for 2 hours, we are exhausted. They wear a mask for 6 to 8 hours with all the PPE, जो जितना भी उसका साथ में होता है. So then I asked her कि आपकी bodily health को कैसे, how has it been affected? She said हमारे mouth में ulcers हो गए हैं, our digestion has been affected, our biological cycle has been disrupted, and when they are menstruating for 6 to 8 hours, they cannot change sanitary napkins. So this is how difficult it is for, I will not say for a women healthcare worker, for all the healthcare workers deployed in the COVID ward. I don't want to miss out on the young residents. They are doing incredible job. They are young, they're barely out of their 20s. And for them, the exposure to such human suffering is traumatic. Doctors learn with experience, but for them, itna sara human suffering at such a young age, I'm sure it's highly traumatic. मैंने एक young doctor से पूछा and she said, "Ma'am, शुरू में तो 12-12 घंटे की ड्यूटी लगती थी, तब से families को नहीं देखा, पढ़ने का time नहीं मिलता." So it's such a huge emotional burden on the residents working in the COVID wards. And while I was doing all these conversations and the counseling, so I asked them कि मैं आपकी फोटो खींच सकती हूँ सबको इकट्ठा करके. They were so excited, Kushal. I mean, I can't even tell you कि उनको कोई recognition दे रहा है that they are doing such incredible work. So many of them ran so that they could write their names on their PPEs. And then we took a group picture. So this is the human face to the superhumans. working in the COVID wards. And I can't express how grateful I am for the service they are rendering to the society. But also, please remember, they are humans. And my fear is, what if they break? What if they break? So, my message to everyone is, please follow COVID protocols.
Thank you, ma'am, for such emotional stories and for narration for our viewers. I would like to also urge to my viewers that we have lost hundreds of healthcare professionals, frontline workers in past 1 year, and still please follow the protocols laid down by the administration. Ma'am, my next question for you is, COVID affect our lungs primarily, but more or less it affects our mental status. Being a mental therapist and a caregiver, how you had coped up with this stream of anxiety, and what is your mantra that you can give for our viewers?
Kushal, COVID is actually lungs ko bahut, I mean, it actually hits your lungs. A lot of people suffer breathlessness. When breathlessness sets in, you automatically, your anxiety levels increase many-fold. So the anxiety that comes with COVID is very big. There are multiple reasons for the mental health of a patient also taking a hit. First is the name COVID somehow is synonymous with death. Second is admission in a COVID ward. It is actually like a jail. Jail still has fresh air coming in. A COVID ward is, you are isolated, you are labeled as an untouchable. I mean, naam nahi dete hain. You're not told you are an untouchable, but nobody comes near you. The doors to your ward are shut. You cannot move out. Even if you're able to move, walk around, you can't move out. You have a tiny space in which you live. And in addition to that, the symptoms that come in, there's breathlessness. COVID now is causing GI symptoms also. A lot of patients I know are having severe GI symptoms. So, man by nature is a social animal. And when you don't have contact, when you are denied of human contact, you become anxious. And in such a situation, I have seen a lot of patients who've been admitted, suffer a lot of anxiety, and a lot of them have also slipped into depression. How I coped up was, Kushal, since Kushal mentioned that I'm a cancer survivor and I had to, during my treatment, I had periods of isolation. So that helped me cope up with isolation a bit. Plus, I did a lot of reading. I spoke to the people around in the ward. My family was a great support. And also I exercised, because every time my consultant would come in, the tiny space he would always say, Vandana, are you exercising? Are you exercising your lungs? So I did my yoga in the tiny space that was available. Whatever I could do. I couldn't do much because I was tiring. And also I have great belief in the Gayatri Mantra. The Gayatri Mantra helped me during my cancer struggle. And again, this time, I think chants and meditation give you peace of mind. Gayatri Mantra helped me a lot. Whenever I would feel troubled, I would recite it in my head. And then came a time I started playing the Gayatri Mantra for everybody in the COVID world, for the ICU patients, for the doctors. And that actually helped me deal with the anxiety, but it's tough. By the 6th or the 7th day, I was on the verge of breaking down. So it's not easy at all. Like I said, humans they flourish by social contact, by human contact. And especially if you're unwell, you need your loved ones around. So it takes superhuman strength to be able to deal with the isolation that lands up as a package deal to COVID.
Thank you, ma'am. My last question for you is, what message you want to share to our audience through our platform on behalf of COVID warriors?
Only one message. The COVID warriors, the COVID healthcare professionals are deemed superhumans, but please don't forget, they are as human as you and I. They are going beyond what they are supposed to do. So, for your sake and for their sake, mask up, sanitize, maintain social distance, and for the ones who are eligible, please take the vaccination. All doctors, all healthcare professionals have been vaccinated and they're doing an incredible job. So please don't be scared of taking the vaccination. I have taken it too in spite of multiple comorbidities that I have. Vaccination is absolutely safe. So start thinking about the healthcare professionals. Start thinking about the human lives that are associated with them. Be grateful, and from your side, follow COVID protocols. That's the least we can do, so that the excess burden on the healthcare system comes down a little bit. That's all that I want to say, Kushal.
Thank you, ma'am, for this session, for sparing some time for us and narrating those tales which were not heard, which were unheard to our audience. And this was our interview session with Mrs. Vandana Mahajan, behind the scenes, healthcare workers and frontline workers. Thank you, ma'am. And do visit our Inflame Medical magazine and do follow our social media handles. Thank you.